Welcome back to the Revival Method podcast. Happy 2024, everybody. I do apologize for not posting podcasts in the last couple of weeks. I've been battling an upper respiratory infection, and to be frank, I didn't want to post a podcast where I sounded like Kermit the Frog and I'm battling all the brain fog, and I just wouldn't be able to get through the topics that I wanted to talk about. If you're new to this podcast, my name is Dr. Brandon Parker. I am the founder of the Revival Method, and it is an online training experience where we optimize your sleep, stress, and nutrition, along with giving you a 1000% individualized training program that's designed to strengthen and restore your range of motion so you can move and feel good without any restriction. If you've been a longtime follower or listener, if you can take at least 5 seconds to post a 5-star review on the streaming site that you're listening on, if you're on YouTube, if you could drop a comment, hit the like button. These are the things that would help me tremendously. In 2024, it's my goal to make the largest impact possible. If you found me on Instagram, you know that I'm just shy of 1 million followers, but having followers and making an impact are two different things. So it is my goal to have a true impact on 1 million followers. On 1 million people, if not this year, years to come. So you can help me by simply upvoting the podcast, or liking and subscribing to the YouTube channel, or you can send it directly to a friend that you feel like could benefit from this information. So without further ado, let's actually talk about the topic that I actually had planned today, because I think it's very important, especially when we are starting the new year. Okay. It is the number one reason most people fail to reach the goals that they set for themselves. And if I were to ask the average person, they probably would say a bad program, or lack of discipline, or there's not enough time. And all of those do play a role in somebody's ability to reach their goal. It's not it's not the number one reason why people fail. And in my experience, the number one reason why people fail is they're setting up expectations that are just simply unrealistic, and they're trying to control variables that they have really no control over. So think about how crazy that is, and how that can make you crazy. If you're trying to change the weather, you're going to go insane, right? Like, please don't rain, please don't rain. And it rains, you're going to be very upset. So the example that I was kind of alluding to, I'll actually paint you a picture. So does it make more sense to have an outdoor event and pray that it's not going to rain on that day that you have it? Or does it make sense to have tents set up so if it does rain, you can have a good time regardless? The obvious answer is the latter, right? But let's shift this into a lifestyle lens, right? Let's look at it through a lifestyle lens. Does it make more sense to stress over the fact that you have little to no time to exercise? Or does it make more sense to take a moment and try to find ways to streamline your nutrition and your fitness to match your lifestyle restrictions? Obviously the latter, right? The first option is you just stressing and getting nowhere, just treading water, where the second one, you're actually coming up with solutions, right? So the first thing I want you to consider is, how can I come up with solutions even with my current restrictions? And my solution for you is to control the variables that you can control the best that you can. And for the things that you can't control, let them go, or at least have a game plan around them. Okay. So the things that I wanted to cover today is some things that you can really move the needle on. Like if you're trying to really lose that 15 to 30 pounds, you're really trying to move and feel better. These are the low hanging fruits that you should start with, because they don't take a lot of energy to do, but they will give you energy back. So you'll have that momentum when you start to really try to make a big change. Okay. The first thing is your sleep cycle or your sleep schedule. If you have poor sleep habits, you are not fully charging your battery. You expect to make these big changes, which require effort, on a half tank of gas or a half battery. It's not going to go well, right? And by simply setting the time that you go to sleep and when you wake up on every day of the week, that is going to make a drastic change. And the reason why is because we're optimizing your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm is an internal clock that our body has that simply tells us when we should be waking up and going to bed. Now, what influences it is our diet, our exercise, our hormones. All these things play a role, of course. But the most simplistic thing that you can start to do is, once again, getting to bed at the same time every night and waking up at the same time every day. Okay. If you do not get proper sleep, you're going to see a number of things. Your pain is going to be much higher. Your anxiety is going to be much higher. Your irritability is going to be much higher. So, just with those three alone, do you really think that you're going to make a change that requires effort? Chances are no. On top of that, we know that when we are sleep deprived and stressed, we tend to gravitate towards processed foods because they're already prepared for us, right? So not only is sleep, not getting enough sleep, making us feel worse, it's actually detrimental and it's taking us in the opposite direction in which we want to go. So, once again, setting your sleep cycle is going to be super important. Now, you yourself probably already know the amount of hours that you operate off the best. Me personally, it's 7.5 hours. If I get 8, I'm groggy. If I get 6, I'm a little brat. So I know 7.5 hours is what I'm trying to nail. And when I hit my 7.5 hours, I am feeling good and I do have a full battery. So play around with your sleep cycle, figure out what you personally need to be at your best, and then set the hours that you need to hit in order to get there. The next thing that we can control is our water intake. When it comes to Americans, a majority of them are chronically dehydrated. And because of that, there's a couple things that happen. Once again, it's kind of like sleep. Our pain goes up, our irritability is higher, we're hungrier, we have brain fog, which also goes with sleep as well. And the fact that if we're dehydrated, our sleep also is affected. So I guess they really do go hand in hand. And by simply drinking half your body weight in pounds in fluid ounces, you are going to be at least adequately hydrated. Now, I do blend that rule with another rule, which would be the P test, to make sure that I am always hydrated. So, for example, if I'm drinking 100 fluid ounces, and let's just say I'm working outside and I'm sweating up a storm, and I go pee, and my pee is pretty brown, that's my body telling me I'm not drinking enough water, right? So that is a direct feedback from my body saying drink more. Now, if it's super clear, that might be telling me that I am overhydrated and I might be peeing out all my electrolytes. So that tells me that maybe I should slow down on my hydration a little bit. The goal should be a light yellow, right? Not dark, not too clear, but just a light yellow. By simply bringing your hydration up, you're probably not going to need as much caffeine, because a lot of times when we get that brain fog and that tiredness, it's just a dehydration response and not a true tiredness response. And if we actually downregulate the caffeine consumption, that also can feed back into sleep. So as you can see, sleep and hydration they go hand in hand. And by drinking more water and going to bed on time, they don't require energy. They, in fact, give you energy. So I always like to start with those two, because if we are in fact filling your battery or charging your battery to its full capacity, you're going to feel better. You're going to want to do more things, right? Moving on to the next one, the next bullet, which is protein and fiber. I put them together because they both are nutrients that will make you feel fuller longer. So if you are somebody that's looking to lose additional weight, this is the easiest way that you can do so, because these make you feel full. So you're not going to feel like you're restricting yourself from foods that you want to eat, or you're not going to feel like you're not giving your body the energy that it deserves. These things will keep you fuller longer. But let's jump into each one of them a little bit more. When it comes to having muscle mass on our body, it's biologically active, meaning the more muscle we have, the more calories we need to support that muscle. So you have somebody that is 150 pounds and you have somebody that's 200 pounds with the same amount of body fat. Well, that 200-pound person is going to have more muscle mass. They're going to need much more calories in order to maintain their current state of being, right? And this plays an important role because as we age, it's natural for us to lose muscle mass. Now, that can be due to a number of factors. Like as we age, we naturally don't exercise as much as we did when we were younger. We have kids, we have all these stresses, we're not eating enough protein. These are the things that would play into us losing muscle mass. And on top of that, for females, we have menopause. For males, we have lower T levels. All play a role in us losing muscle, right? All that to say is if we can start to increase our protein intake, we can at least optimize and maximize the amount of muscle that we have on our frame. And we can actually see a boost in our metabolism, but also we're less likely to be injured because our strength and our resiliency goes up as well. And not to mention, think about it like this: the stronger that you are, which means more muscle, your everyday activities aren't going to be as hard, right? So like if you're super strong, a jug of milk, the carry is not hard. But if you're super weak, it might be taking you almost all your energy to pick up that jug of milk, right? Simple example, but I think it makes a point. Okay. So by aiming to get somewhere between 0.8 grams to 1 gram of protein per body pound, that will put you in a range where you are adequately trying to preserve your muscle mass or put on more. And then for fiber. This is the thing that's been worked out of most foods. That's what we call processed foods. And it's leading to an increase in colorectal cancer. Fiber plays a massive role in many different ways. And I think I'm going to put a podcast out in just that alone. But to keep it simple here, it is awesome because once it gets to our large intestine, it feeds our microbiome, which is all the good bacteria in our body, which releases antioxidants and also prevents things that would compromise our immune system. But I don't want to get into the trickiness there. The thing that we should be focusing on when it comes to fiber intake is around 25-ish grams per day. You can find that out by looking at the back of your nutrition labels, or if you're tracking, it will track that for you. But getting enough fiber into your diet could drastically improve your health as well. In fact, if you were to improve one of these bullets, just one of them, you'll see a notable difference. Improve all of them, you're a new person. But we know how habits work. Start slow and build up over time. Next thing is going to be daily activity. Okay. I love to walk. Walking is my thing. Just everything I talk about in this little bullet point, you can apply it to any physical activity. You can swim, you can cycle, you can do whatever you want. Okay. But the data is clear. The more that we are physically active, and in this terms for walking, the more steps that we accumulate, the better, as long as you can recover from it, right? So they see that the more active we are, things like Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, stroke, things like that are preventable, the more that you walk, the less likely that you're going to contract one of these diseases. So by walking more, or the more physically active that you are, you're literally extending your life, right? And the other reason why I wanted to bring up physical activity is the fact that the more that we walk, the more we are building our cardiovascular system. When we build our cardiovascular system, we have oxygen adequately filling our body, reaching the areas that it needs to reach. We're going to feel like we have more energy because we recover better, right? Because remember, back to the water intake bullet point that I was talking about, the better that we can get the nutrients to travel around the body, aka more water, making our blood optimal, we are going to recover much faster because the nutrients are getting to where they need to go. Okay. So by simply walking somewhere between 8 to 10,000 steps, you are going to be making a drastic improvement in how you move and feel. And also, once again, if you're trying to lose weight, this is a very simple way to create a caloric deficit without it being stressful. You're just walking, or you're just accumulating steps between you walking to work from your car, right? Which I'm going to talk about how we can streamline some physical activity in another podcast here. So daily activity, very important because it also will regulate your sleep. It also will regulate your stress, which also will help your sleep and your digestion. I can go on for days here. But moving on to the next topic, I'm all over the place. I appreciate. I apologize, but back to the physical activity. If you're like 8 to 10,000 steps, that is a lot, Dr. Parker. Just start with doing more. If you're at 3,000 steps, let's just try 4,000 steps, right? Like, or if you need a smaller stepping stone, 3,500, 3,200. Pick a little bit more than what you're doing. Get that to be your normal baseline and just keep bumping it up. Simple as that. Slow and steady is what we want. We don't want these rapid increases out of nowhere. Now, the last two go hand in hand, so I'll just talk about them together. The last two bullet points are how you speak to yourself and the expectations and your mindset that you have for yourself. Now, I say this all the time. The words that you use and how you speak to yourself are going to create your perception and your reality. If you're somebody that is negative and harsh on themselves, you are going to start being pessimistic, and your outlook on the potential of you changing is going to be none. You're going to think to yourself, what's the point, right? The one rule that or at least the exercise that I use with people is the next time you negatively speak about yourself in any light, ask yourself, would you say that to your best friend if they did the same thing? Chances are the answer is no. But the reason why we do it to ourselves, and I do it to myself, and I'm working on it as well, is we know we can take the criticism. But remember that our brain is always receiving information. Our brain has to take in all of our sensations, our taste, smell, eyesight, hearing, all that's coming in at all times. And we have these filters in our brain that basically dictates what's important and what's not important. And when we start to use negative language, we start to focus on those excuses that we're making for ourselves, that the name calling that we use for ourselves, and we start to emphasize that in our conscious behavior. Our brain goes, okay, you said that you are somebody that doesn't exercise because you don't like to sweat. Okay. Now you're going to focus on more reasons why you can't exercise, because it's 90 degrees out. I'm definitely going to sweat. Or if I go on the treadmill, I'm going to sweat. It's a simple example, but I think I'm making a point here. So by you changing how you describe your current self, by you setting up expectations that are reasonable, right? Something that you can hold yourself accountable to, but understand when life hits you in the face, it's okay to not be perfect. And to understand that this is a process, right? We're focusing on the activities that gets us to the outcome. Then you'll actually start to make progress. When you set a goal and all you are focused on is that outcome, you are going to self-sabotage. And when you self-sabotage, you don't start back at square one. You actually start way before that, or worse than that. That's just because that's the self-sabotaging cycle. We think we're going to be doing stuff that's perfect. We're not perfect. Self-sabotage to the point where we hate what we did to ourselves. And then boom, we're actually in a worse circumstance than before. And as you can play this thought experiment out, if this cycle continues itself, you're actually getting worse instead of better, or at least stagnant. Okay. So the things that I would like to also say is, for the variables that you can't control, doesn't mean you can't have a strategy. In my analogy, when I first started this episode, was you can't stop when it rains, but you can make sure that you have tents out. It's the same idea where you can't control when work has deadlines. You can't control when your kids get sick, right? But you can have a game plan around that. Okay, I have deadlines coming up, or this was an unexpected deadline. I'm going to go pick up a rotisserie chicken that's already prepared for me. I'm going to make some rice, which takes less than 10 minutes. And from there, I'll have a healthy meal, and I don't have to go to Wendy's, Taco Bell, all these fast food restaurants where we know doesn't have the best quality of food and the best, I'd say, food that's dense in nutrients and not as high in calorie. I don't want to use any language that says good or bad food, because they don't need labels. There's food that aligns with us and don't align with us. So once again, have a strategy over the things that you can't control, and I guarantee you that you're going to be less stressful. So a quick recap over this whole thing is the variables that you can control are your sleep schedule. Try to set a time where you go to bed and wake up each day. Your water intake, at least half your body weight in fluid ounces, if we're talking about pounds. And then if you are unsure if you're dehydrated or overhydrated, double check your pee, see what color it is. For your protein intake and your fiber intake, for protein, we want to make sure we're getting somewhere between 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per body pound. So I'm 200 pounds, 200 grams per day, which I know can be hard. So what we can do is slowly up that over time. Same thing with fiber. If you're not where we're at the fiber goal, slowly up that over time. For fiber, aim for 25 grams per day, slowly throughout each of your meals, not in just one big meal. And then your daily activity, we should be aiming somewhere between 8 to 10,000 steps or something that's equivalent to that. If you are nowhere near that measure, just slowly ramp it up over time, just like the protein, just like the fiber. Don't overwhelm yourself. And then last but not least, watch how you speak to yourself, because that is going to dictate your success. If you're overly critical, you're going to lose interest and you're never going to cross that finish line. Remember, life happens, be flexible. And at the end of the day, as long as you're focused on the things that you need to do to thrive, you're going to get to the outcome. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Okay. I hope this was beneficial. It was really good kind of just outlining everything here. If you're interested in joining our free community to join the 21-day challenge that's coming up here, I'm going to have the link in the bio below.